after being a victim of war in the last 25 years in Afghanistan. So we've been victim for peace as well. It seems the women of Afghanistan, we should pay this price by our body, by our soul. But for what?
Hi, I'm Shoma Chaudhury. Thanks for watching Enquiry. I have a very, very special guest on the show today. Shukria Barakzai is an Afghani activist and political leader. She helped draft the Afghani constitution and was part of the Defense Committee in Parliament. She's also someone who lost her twin son and daughter to the civil war. She ran an underground network of schools during the Taliban regime. She ran a newspaper called the Women's Mirror and has had several assassination attempts made on her. She's also someone that the Taliban flogged on the streets. So who better than her to help us understand what's going on in Afghanistan today? Over the weekend, while the world's eyes was on the Tokyo Olympics, in a devastating surge of violence, the Taliban overtook and captured 3 provincial capitals in Afghanistan. With the American withdrawal of troops, the compromised peace talks in Doha, and the sinister geopolitical games being played out there, the ordinary people of Afghanistan have been left drowning in a dangerous, toxic ocean of poison. What happens in Afghanistan has security implications for the entire world, but most crucially, it also has implications for our own humanity. So to help us understand the cruel landscape unfolding in our own neighborhood, thank you very much for joining me on the show, Shukria.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm delighted to share today my opinion and my ideas and the true story from the front line, what's going on in my country at the moment.
You know, just over this last weekend, Shukriya, there's been such an escalation with the Taliban taking over 5 provincial capitals. There's such distressing news coming from all over, especially women and children, but Afghan soldiers. There's a capitulation from the government. When you look at the entire landscape, before I get into the political, fallouts of what's happening with America's withdrawal of its troops, speaking for yourself and for the voices of the ground that you are hearing, what are people feeling, and what are they most frustrated or distressed by? America, the Taliban, Pakistan, the government? Where do people's real sense of betrayal lie?
I think the people of Afghanistan in a very shocking position at the moment, because it was like a nightmare what's changing rapidly at the moment. The people of Afghanistan, we never believed that the US will leave us on a, let's say, with the off-light takeoff in the midnight without informing anyone in the government, or such a kind of washing their hands from Afghanistan. When it comes to people to opening their eyes and seeing the white flag of Taliban are wrapping where the US military bases was, that wasn't acceptable or believable at the beginning. So that's why I say I use the word of shocking. So still we are in a very shocking situation. And for the people, when it comes, of course, women's children, people which is they are working with the government as employees. But even we are like been sandwiched and going to be melted with extraordinary pressures at the moment, psychologically, economically, and of course, politically and security-wise, general security and human security. So we are in a bad crisis situation at the moment that from different angles and different perspectives, no one is really trying to understand as the situation of Afghanistan. But when it comes to the reality on the ground, yes, Taliban almost they took over a couple of provinces, and that wasn't a let's say happy news for the people of Afghanistan, because all the bloodshed was going on at the moment. It's the Afghan civilians are the victim of the current situation, and wrong policies and wrong decision was been made it without any kind of calculation and without any result of the peace process issue in Afghanistan between United States and America in Taliban. But when it comes to the women, to be honest, the women of Afghanistan, I never believed that. Again, I should start from where I start exactly 23 years back during the Taliban. So I'm thinking like after all the progress and sacrifice, time and efforts we put, so still we have to stand up again for our rights and talking on from ourselves for the women's rights and women's education. But the worst thing is right now is happening is everybody's just thinking about to survive. You know, that's be a survivor. It's not a pleasant situation. It's a very weak position that unwantedly Afghanistan is, and especially when it's for women's, it's hard to believe that even Taliban are taking women for sexual slavery. That's so, I would say it's a very dramatic situation to see the picture of today Afghanistan, unfortunately.
So, you know, Shukriya, I'll come again to the lived experience, but just to broaden out a little bit, you said that there's a great sense of surprise and a feeling of shock that the Americans would withdraw at the speed at which they've withdrawn. But talk of this withdrawal has gone on for a while. You know, what about what the Americans have done, you know, has really taken Afghanistan by surprise? You know, of course, there's the issue that in February 2020, the agreement that was signed between America and the Taliban, and the Afghanistan government wasn't even a part of that conversation, which itself is surprising. And also that, you know, America only took a sort of, you know, without any substantive proof of what Taliban would do, but just that they will not attack American and, you know, NATO troops. There was no assurances for how the Taliban would behave with Afghanis, you know, when troops are withdrawn. So that one knows, but you already knew that. So what is the source of your sense of betrayal about what America has done?
Well, of course, the Afghans was being betrayed by their friends, unfortunately, by those whom they came with the slogan of war against terror, by those whom they come and they say they will win the hearts and minds of Afghans, by those whom they came with the beautiful sentence and messages for democracy, human rights, women's rights in Afghanistan. It's very heartbreaking. It's very sad to see where we are at the moment. I think the way American wash their hands from Afghanistan, I'm sure it's not clean. They can see the dirt and blood on top of it because the type of deal they made with the Taliban, with that was the first, from my point of view, political mistake and the start of catastrophe and disaster at the moment in Afghanistan. I think with their political decision, United States of America, they destroyed all the investment because the people of Afghanistan trust on them, on NATO countries and United States of America. In such a kind of overnight decision and withdrawal were not been expected, because even when President Biden came, he didn't say that they will take out troops quick. He said they will reviewing. So that review was means to us as a people of Afghanistan, okay, they will definitely first review the Doha agreement, that where are the peace process and how much development was been made it by the Taliban, that they can trust them, and with their request, they will leave Afghanistan. Of course, the American military presence in Afghanistan was not been, an invitation from Afghanistan was not been sent to them. And that's why they came when they like and they left when they want. So that was very clear. But when it comes to at least the agreement they made, and I would say a very dirty face of politics, that we are paying the price, Afghan innocent women, children, and civilians are paying the price of that kind of dirty politics and dirty game, is that Taliban was accepting that they will start the political process. They will reduce the violence. They will never attack on the big cities, and they will cut their tail and break their tail from Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which is, or other international terrorist networks. And they will set for a political settlement through to the Doha process and peace talks. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. For months, it's near 1 year, the Afghan delegation team was been present in Doha, and they were waiting for the Taliban to come and sit for the, let's say, constructive talk about the peace and reconciliation. And that was the time that the Taliban gained, which is, unfortunately, they were preparing themselves for a huge attack on Afghanistan. But from Afghan side and government, because we trust the United States of America, we believe they are the greatest policy maker for entire globe, and that's why they guarantee the peace process. That's why the 5,000 Taliban prisoners was being released from the prison, and even people such as Haqqani was being released as a building trust among two sides to sacrifice a lot for the peace process, which is unfortunately those sacrifices was just remain for Afghan side. Nothing happened from Taliban. Their military after, and politically, unfortunately, even I can say diplomatically, after that dirty agreement, which is they named the Doha agreement, they got a fake type of very fake identity. Diplomatically, they got a huge floor. So countries, states, they had a states visit, they had countries, and they was been feeling that, okay, they are representing Afghanistan. I think at the beginning, it wasn't a good idea to put the people of Afghanistan, the government of Afghanistan, sideline. So from the very beginning, when the policy of ignorance comes to listen to the voice of victims and women's and youths and civil society, when it was the time for negotiation, although the special envoy from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Zalmay Khalilzad, he came and visit quite often, and he always was been ensured and say that, okay, they wouldn't be like the same criminal group as they was before. But when it comes to the reality, when it comes to the truth, when time comes to prove and to see what is the Taliban, if you read their press statement, it means they are the most great guys, and they are in Afghanistan to save the people of Afghanistan. And that's not the truth. With the direct support from the Pakistan Intelligence Service, Pakistan Army, and other international terrorist network groups, that they never had space in their own home and countries. Chechenis are fighting there. From Uzbekistan Islamic movement, people are fighting there. Pakistani Taliban are fighting here in my country. So Uyghur are fighting here in my country. So unfortunately, things are really going to be out of control. Daesh is fighting at the moment here in Afghanistan. So if I understand the reason that why Taliban controlled all these landscape, first, they've been prepared. They lied to the international community. They lied to the people of Afghanistan. They were not loyal and honest with us. They prepared all and every map for the military activity. And so that's why we lose the landscape, because still we believe that peace talks may have some result. Okay. At least ceasefire was the beginning.
Yeah. So I just want to reinforce some of what you said, Shukria, for audiences that are not familiar with this landscape. It's astonishing what you've just emphasized, which is that the American peace talks in Doha with the Taliban actually excluded the government. So it really legitimized the Taliban without making the government or the people of Afghanistan a party to that process. The intra-Afghan talks was a secondary process, which was going to take over after America and the Taliban had come to their agreement, whereas America sought assurance that no attacks would happen on the American troops, but they did not take assurance for what would happen to Afghani people. They've not ensured that. And apparently they left the Bagram airport overnight without coordinating with the Afghani government. And so the Taliban actually was able to come in, and it took a lot of fighting from the forces to retain control. So there's this absolute sidelining of the Afghani government and of the Afghani people. So the question I want to follow up on that, Shukriya, is that when you look back at these 20 years of the American presence in Afghanistan, what were the positives that came out of it, and what were the negatives? Like, what was the ground that was achieved, which makes this upheaval and this betrayal even more stark and painful?
I think the greatest achievement we had, at least because before American Afghanistan was badly under control of Taliban, so before American invasion of Afghanistan, and a marginalized Afghanistan got back to the world map finally, and that was like a window of hope and opportunity was been opened for the people of Afghanistan. And I think the greatest achievement, I would say, from my point of view, is the Afghan new generation. They've grown up with a better environment, more opportunity. They've been connected and communicating with the entire world. So they had a big dream. They've been able to educate. They've been able to think, and I think everyone has the right to dream. Sports sector, politics, women's, let's say entrepreneurs, and every single layer. When you see the achievements and women, politics, I think civil society organization, free press in Afghanistan, the greatest constitution of Afghanistan, a modern constitution. So I think, and of course, rebuilding the Afghan National Security Force, those are the great achievements, plus some infrastructure, a big project with the friend countries such as India, other donor countries, including United States of America. We are grateful from all the help was been made for Afghanistan to stand back on their own feet. It was impossible for any state to be recovered after 25 years conflict. And after that 25 years conflict, we had another almost, not 20 years, but let's say 19 years to just recover ourselves. So right now, is I would say, like, it's the atmosphere here has been very badly poisoned. First, it's like against the United States, that so they are not a loyal friend for Afghanistan. Still, they are counting on them, so something may happen. But I think it's very hard for any nation to trust. We've been like to be betrayed, and we've been feeling like, okay, everybody just wash their hands, and we're feeling that we are a playground for the big power in the world. So whenever they like, they can come and they use us, and when they like, they can go back. And so that was like the negative side.
Shukriya, you know, I think that's a very fair sort of sense of betrayal, because yes, as you said, America came to fight terror, but if you go back further, there was also the arming of the Mujahideen was done by American CIA itself. So, you know, there has been that sense of a playground for global powers, you know, for Russia, for Pakistan, for China, for America. Afghanistan's just been a pawn. But, you know, President Biden, when he was deflecting criticism of the way the Americans are leaving Afghanistan, he said enough has been done to make the Afghani army and troops, defense forces stand on their own feet. And, you know, enough time, energy, money, expertise has been given. And so the country has to stand up for itself now. How would you take that criticism?
I don't want to compare my great courageous Afghan National Security Force with the terrorist network of Taliban. They just know how to kill and how to react with fear. But the Afghan National Security Force is the one that they are responsible and in charge for the safety and security of the people. They are in charge to enforce the law. They are in charge for the safety of the security of the country. So I don't want, I'm really sorry. I hope you understand me, what I'm saying, because for me, it's not acceptable to see in the same level the Taliban fighter and to compare it with the Afghan National Security Force. If Taliban see me, they may shoot on me just because I'm women and they don't like my ideas. But if the Afghan National Security Force, if I see them on the street, I will salute them and they will share a sign of respect. So that's a kind of huge difference. I don't want to, because that's why the Afghan National Security Force are trying to emphasize their energy and their knowledge to decrease the civilian casualty. But for Taliban, they are using human shield, the civilian as a shield. So they are just here. That's why we can see the large number of landscape is going to be at the hands of Taliban. From my point of view, of course, we do have the greatest soldiers, well-trained, well-equipped. But when it comes to the political leadership, yeah, there are some kind of criticism is turning back to the Afghan government. But dear, we were not been ready to see such a kind of overnight political and military decision from the United States of America. If they want to leave Afghanistan, I think 2014 was the greatest time. Afghanistan politically, economically was in a better situation than today. 2 years the COVID drama was happening. And before that, the peace process. You cannot believe how this peace process damaged the Afghan economy. It divided the Afghan politicians in a different direction, and it's give more energy to the Taliban. It's hard for you. It's like they gained the time and they got all vitamins that their body was needed. And unfortunately, from the Afghan side, a wounded body was been cutting the vein, and all the blood was been throwing. So that's why it's been a kind of a dirty game was been played with us. So if we are not asked, we never asked for United States to stay forever with us. No, but with the right time and right decision. At least something needs and must be shared between Afghan government, because we are their eligible partner. We signed an agreement, a bilateral security agreement between Afghanistan and United States of America, and it's valid till 2024. You know, criticizing is one hand. I don't want to criticize anyone, but our homework was been perfectly well. But the slogan of peace process damaged the entire thing, because they give us a different picture. They say it will be a political settlement. Taliban will come, same as Mujahideen. They will be part of government, and they will be extremely civilized because they changed. So, and now the United States of America should be responsible for the Afghan nation in the entire world. How they can go and sign a kind of agreement that the next day America will come and they will use their own B-52 against them. Still, I'm proud and I believe the capacity of the Afghan National Security Force. The way they are leaving the battleground, that's not because of they are not capable. That is because of the all internal politics system, and the last 2 years was been badly mixed. That's why some provinces was just been handed over to the Taliban, because the people of Afghanistan believe, okay, United States guarantee peace for Afghanistan, not war. That's why, so that's maybe a part of peace deal. The lack of information, the United States of America do not only sideline the government of Afghanistan, but also the people of Afghanistan and the entire globe, even our allies. I think just recently I heard the criticism in UK Parliament, in Germany, and other NATO countries. So because they were not prepared, at least they had the thoughts in their minds was been like till end of January 2021, they will stay in Afghanistan. If you see the whole project, that was really shocking. I'm sure you may be able to see in the Bagram Air Base, even their food was been left on their tables. So even the American soldier would not have the idea that they have to leave as soon as possible. So this is something happen, which is we don't know why so rapidly things happen and why things change so quick and so fast. It's not the question of capacity from the Afghan National Security Force. Today, they are on the front line, and today we keep the landscape with their blood and sacrifice, and I'm proud of them. But of course, we have also the corruption was a big part that we lose a part of our territory because of the ghost soldier, because of lack of great leadership in the Afghan National Security Force and the leadership. They don't have enough experience. And unfortunately, the internal politics, which is, I would not only blame United States of America, but also the Afghan leaders.
No, I totally take that point, Shukriya, and I'm trying to stay neutral as an interlocutor, though I myself feel shocked by the peace process and by, America, like you said, the 20 years that they were there, though many civilians died in the drone attacks, but it brought a lot of hope and positivity to the country as well. But this sudden departure, the release of 5,000 hardened Taliban leaders without any sort of framework within which whether they were to give up their arms or lay down all ammunition, there's been absolutely no safeguarding of people. And even now, President Biden seems to be continuing with the Trump administration decision making. And even now, their focus is that, we will regroup our intelligence in a way where we will protect any attack from Afghan soil on America, rather than also a focus about Afghani people. So there's a huge sense of arrogance there. And I feel that not just on your behalf, but even as ourselves, as just global citizens, that the language with which Afghanistan is being treated is, I can feel your outrage, really, Shukriya. So I take that point. I was asking militarily why the Afghan forces were not fighting back more. And you've explained that very well, about the sheer disarray, and also that the Afghan forces can't be as ruthless as the Taliban is being on the battlefield.
Yeah. I have a question. I don't know why everyone, especially foreign media, was been asking, but without any analysis. First is the positive change in Taliban. And I hope they will understand the real face of Taliban. Yeah. And second, no one thought okay, in the last 20 years, and especially after end of 2014, when the military responsibility was on the shoulders of the Afghan National Security Force, entire Afghanistan, not only a part of Afghanistan, but entirely. So that the foreign troops was not been in a battleground anymore. So that was like Afghan National Security Force. NATO and United States was there just to equip and train. And for the Taliban, they were been fighting in the last 20 years in Afghanistan. Why they were not been able even to control 10 simple districts in Afghanistan with their white flag? That at least we would say, okay, out of 364 districts, 10 districts belongs to the Taliban and they are delivering service. But suddenly, how they took over. So it's not like, militant cannot be empowered just overnight. So that's why I say that the wrong message and wrong guarantee from the United States of America, from the peace process and Afghanistan leaders, political leaders, and so that was bring a kind of confusion among the people of Afghanistan. Before anyone asking okay, Taliban control Afghanistan, the same thing should come. So, okay, why not in the last 20 years? Because American after from 2015 till 2021, they were not in the battleground. They were not fighting against Taliban. They were there to support Afghan National Security Force. I hope I will explain what I want to say.
No, I get it. And I'll just sum it up again, that you're saying that in all this while, it wasn't that it was American forces that were fighting the Taliban on the ground over the last few years. Why did they not gain, there were no white flags on any of the provinces. Yeah. And suddenly overnight, they're like a rampaging army. How have they got this new energy, capability, vitamin? And that has come out of either support that's coming to them again. There's a support coming from other countries, or the fact that there was a lot of confusion, and that you're saying that suddenly it's like a dam break. And it's the same Afghan forces that were there earlier who were able to control the country, and now they're not being able to do it. So you're saying there should be greater question about what has happened over the last year and a half that has given the Taliban so much energy and force. I think that's a very valid question. And the other, you mentioned Zalmay Khalilzad, who's the chief negotiator from the US side. And he's been reassuring both the global community as well as Afghanistan that, he's been the face of the proceedings. He's Afghani born. And yet he's also been assuring that the Taliban have changed. And like you, I mean, there's nothing to analyze except to say, what did they base that idea on, that the Taliban have changed? Surely, if they were meeting a certain more moderate face on the negotiating table, the intelligence community is by now deep enough to give proper feedback about, what warlords and war leaders were doing on the ground, what the military commanders were doing on the ground, whether more arms were being gathered. So this big discrepancy that you're talking about between the public face of what was happening in Doha and what was actually happening on the ground is definitely something that, all political players in this game, particularly America, needs to answer for, So you yourself, I wanted to ask you about this other statement you just made, that there was hope that there would be a political settlement and that the Taliban would perhaps become a part of the government, that they would come under the constitutional framework of Afghanistan, which you have helped draft and which is a very modern, positive-looking constitution. So I wanted to ask you that you were flogged by the Taliban on the street. So you ran a school underground network of schools when the Taliban were in power. You have a newspaper, called the Women's Mirror. So you have years on the ground of how people feel. So I wanted to ask you that, is there any acceptance on the ground for the Taliban? Do they only rule with military force and with brutality? Or is there psychological acceptance of the Taliban in some parts of Afghanistan? Why did you believe that they could be part of the political process and be acceptable to the people of Afghanistan?
To be honest, if you're asking my opinion personally, I reject to be a part of negotiating team from the government of Afghanistan to the Taliban. Because for me, I don't believe and I don't trust that anything was been changed since 1995 in the behavior and ideology of Taliban. Taliban are just a robot. Their remote control is not on their hands. I think many times we've been witness when Zalmay Khalilzad cannot satisfy the Taliban leaders, he must travel and flew to Pakistan and talk with Bajwa or Imran Khan or anyone else, Pakistani authorities. I remember when there was a sort of, let's say, political conflict between Pakistan and India, Pakistani authorities, Qureshi, Minister of Foreign Affairs, he raised that it may affect the Afghan peace process. I remember when Imran Khan tweet after President Biden inauguration ceremony that we are ready to help the United States of America, the peace process in Afghanistan. So when Pakistan had nothing in hand except Afghanistan on their hands and their proxies with the name of Taliban or other, let's say, groups in Afghanistan, that's very understandable that why the Afghan peace process is not an Afghan peace process among Afghan. So I think everybody tried to show it's the internal issue from the very beginning. Oh, Afghan lead, Afghan talks, which is, I personally believe that nothing belongs to Afghan except the landscape. Everyone else is carrying their own concern and they want to beat their own enemy in the Afghan playground with the name of the playground with the name of Afghanistan. The government of Afghanistan also announced that there are some made in Irani equipments, military equipments that Taliban are using. It is made by Iran and donated by Iran to them. When you saw the policy of Russia, how they welcomed Taliban and how they hug and how they facilitate the talks and how they support, how they talk on behalf of Taliban. So that's also understandable. So it was not only Pakistan. Pakistan, of course, their proxies in Afghanistan are the Taliban. So from my point of view, Taliban doesn't have any sympathy with the people of Afghanistan, which is, I would say, the people of Afghanistan will also have the sympathy with the Taliban. Not at all, because if even the landscape is not shared between me and them as an Afghan being, if the national interest is not making sense for them, if my national flag, I'm not saying government sign, national flag with the three colors is not acceptable for them, which is written all the Islamic words in the history of my country, which is named a liberty for Afghanistan. So then what I have shared with them? Nothing. When they're destroying the dam, when they are killing innocent Afghan, when they are attacking on the universities, schools, madrasas, clinics, destroying the bridges and streets, how I could trust, how I could say that psychologically people have sympathy with the Taliban. Despite of all the disaster was been made by the government and shortcomings from the services and corruption, but still, if you ask the people, whom you would like to be with, government of Afghanistan or Taliban? Definitely they would say the government of Afghanistan. Simply why? Because at least we have the freedom of speech. Second, they are not acting such a brutal as Taliban. Third, at the end, we can change the government by our power to go and vote. But there's no hope to change military power to the political power from the Taliban. So that's why, from my point of view, when it comes to Islamic ideology, of course, there are people, they are carrying similar ideas, but not with the same behavior. When it comes, that's how democracy is functioning. That's what I thought that, okay, so finally, maybe as a someone, I believe democracy in different opinion in one society and all the differences among us. So I thought maybe Taliban will go and be a part of political settlement in Afghanistan. They may have a piece of cake in this beautiful cake or chocolate cake was been shared among other politicians. So 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 portion will be for the Taliban. And by that, they will be getting civilized. I remember how Mujahideen was at the beginning. So, and this is what remind me that when the time I was drafting the constitution, when I was been asking for equal rights for men and women, and when we were having parliament at the beginning, so when all these Mujahideen were not that civilized as they are today. But unfortunately, it shows that nothing changed in the Pakistan policy toward Afghanistan. And I was very optimistic that my analysis will be wrong and the peace process will make some effort. So at the end, we will be witness of political settlement. And unfortunately, nothing happened like that. When it comes to me, I lost my kids during the civil war, and the Taliban several times they made I was been assassinating several times, and last one was 2014. That was a car bomb suicide attack. So I don't know, I'm alive and survive is a miracle, but it doesn't mean how much I survived, but that means for me, what is the legacy I will leave behind?
In fact, I wanted to come to to the way women are feeling in Afghanistan, Shukria, because I read something very disturbing, which is that just in this first 6 months, more women and children have lost their lives in the first 6 months of 2021, when America is leaving, than since 2009, when the UN started taking formal records of civilian deaths. If you look back on these 20 years, how much has the thinking changed around women? Can you give us a sense of that in society itself? And, I don't even know how to phrase the question of how women are feeling today when there's the prospect that Taliban could come back.
First of all, I hope the government of Afghanistan may not fall, and especially just by the brutal power of Taliban. Because I believe the government of Afghanistan is made by the power of people of Afghanistan. At least it's an elected government. with the great support of international community. I don't know after fall of the government how the international community will talk and speak with the Afghans, because the only legitimate government that today they can represent Afghanistan is the current government, despite of all the criticism we had. So, but legitimacy is something else. Taliban don't have the legitimacy to talk on behalf of Afghans or to act on behalf of Afghanistan. That's very clear. When it comes to the women, to be honest, in the last 20 years, greatest change comes to the women's life, not only in the big cities, but also in the different provinces. We've been witness of a large number of girls in schools, women on universities, and every single layer, starting from the security sector, diplomatic sector, economical sector, political sector, you will see women, they are representing themselves. I think the women of Afghanistan and the young girls of Afghanistan was the success story. To be honest, our achievement was been, of course, so with the all opportunity was been provided by the international community to Afghanistan, but also it was been made by the sacrifice of women in Afghanistan. So I cannot say it's just something, as Taliban say, it's something comes from a Western country and it been deployed to Afghanistan. No, we women in Afghanistan, we paid a lot to build and to be recognized, to build the trust among us in our community, and to be recognized and to get our own identity as an equal citizen or as a citizen in our society. So, and nothing was been heritage, nothing was been for free for us. We fight for it, we pay for it, and we sacrifice for it. So I myself, I start 23 years. 23 years is a long time, extremely long time. What I was been standing for, I have to stand and I have to fight for it because I didn't achieve yet. And that was equality, prosperity, dignity. I think at the end we got our own dignity back, which is unfortunately, after all the 20 years, after all the sacrifice we made, after the great story being in different newspaper, and of course the bad side of the story as well. And after being a victim of war in the last 25 years in Afghanistan, so we've been victim for peace as well. Because what is and whatever is going in my country at the moment, it was not under the name of anything else but peace process. So it's really heartbreaking to be victim for war and to be victim for peace. Because we thought with the peace, we will keep our identity and the great constitution will work. Because unfortunately, Taliban, they didn't read properly the constitution. How Islamic, how modern, how great is that the current constitution of Afghanistan? They thought that was been made by US or anyone else. No, it was been made by the group of committed and loyal Afghans to the Afghan. When it comes to the women, I think at the moment, the situation for women and generally for all Afghan, especially for civilians, it's very harsh. It's hard to describe. It's hard to see. Even those clips on the social media, the reports from the media, despite of the number of casualty was been increased more than 80% in the last 11 years. The other negative side of the war that was been in such a brutal war was been affected. It's the large number of displacement at the moment we are facing, the humanitarian crisis we are facing, the women and young girls are taken as a hostage for the Taliban fighters. So it seems the women of Afghanistan, we should pay this price by our body, by our soul. But for what? We've been extremely vulnerable. Yeah. We are strong by our action, we are courage when it comes to being committed and loyalty for what we want to be. But when it comes to the, let's say, brutal power, we don't have any women warlord. We are not a part of a criminal activity in groups. We are not part of this drug mafia. So we've been clean hands And in a very civilized way, with the great manners, we would love to achieve what we want to. But when we see all these kind of brutalities from the Taliban side, I think it's unacceptable for us. It's the way they are vanishing, and they are trying to make women to be silenced. This is very scary. For instance, they killed a few women in Herat province just because they was been employee for the Ministry of Women's Affairs. They assassinate a lady, an old one, in Malistan, the Ghazni province. And after that, they took over her eyes. So such a kind of actions. And of course, they ask in northern provinces, generally in Afghanistan, they ask families to provide a list of their unmarried young girls from the age of 12 above, and plus the widows. And then they are asking to take them as a hostage or as a toffee, where they get all the landscape. That's what they've been promised from the Taliban, that you can come to the other, I think the call of Taliban to other foreign fighters was, you can come and fight inside of Afghanistan, and as a toffee and as a gift, you can have one Afghan wife, a girl, and one luxury house. So this is how some fighters, I think they've been interviewed, they say this is what they've been promised from the Taliban. That's why a large number of foreign fighters are today fighting in Afghanistan, because first they want to have safe haven for their more further activity, and second, they thought, okay, they will get house and wife for free. Why not? And plus, when the peace process started, they put the women of Afghanistan completely sidelined just to keep and make Taliban to be happy. We asked several times that why no one from women's are not representing Taliban. They don't have any female representative on the table. They say, well, it's okay. And we've been criticizing our government, the international community. They never heard our voice because they just put us sideline. They say, well, when the Taliban came, these things are like internal issues. I think nothing in Afghanistan, neither our war or our peace or women's issue, another thing will be like Afghan internal issue. If it was internal issue, why it was been that much important for European country and for Americans, the issue of human rights, that was really matter. And right now I'm saying Afghans' lives matter. So I hope they will follow and they will echo the same, that yes, Afghan lives and Afghan women's lives are matter. So right now, women across the country, and especially women's rights activists, they are living in great fear because there's no guarantee how they will be survived from the punishment, which is they will get it by Taliban, unfortunately. There's nothing, and there's no hope. Even if you see the embassies, they call for women, they will provide a kind of visas, just the exit policy. Okay, we will take you somewhere. All those embassies are closed. None of the embassies, including India embassy, are not issuing visa for Afghan ordinary citizen unless if they are going for the medical treatment. So this is like Afghanistan, and Afghans must live in a cage with the monsters, unfortunately, and there's no way to go and exit. All the borders are been closed or was been taken over by the Taliban. How millions of Afghans can flee from Afghanistan? It's also a question that why we should live our country. We invest a lot, we pay a lot, and we are here to sacrifice. So why we should live Afghanistan to the hands of those monsters that they don't even believe a simple thing with the name of humanity.
I thank you very much, Shukria. Even though it would be false to push you towards any hope at this circumstance, but it's a distressing note to end on. I just want to reinforce for the audience who don't know, like you said, there have been assassination attempts on you. There have been assassination attempts on Fawzia Kufi, who's one of the very few women negotiators in Doha, representing the Afghani government, trying to speak to the Taliban, and that innumerable women like you have continued to speak even after you've lost children, when you were drafting the constitution, You actually are separated from your husband because he took a second wife. So you've been living out your politics in practice, literally, and like you said, with clean hands, without arms, and that's the greatest kind of courage, Shukriya. So I can only salute and say thank you. And just to end on, because we have a predominantly Indian audience, and without you sugarcoating it, but how do the Afghani people see India and India's involvement with Afghanistan? Thankfully, our foreign ministry has been making strong statements that they will not accept any usurping of power. There's no legitimacy for those who take military power over the country. So that, at least in the official language, is fair. But how do the people of Afghanistan view India?
Well, something has been very natural, the friendship or brotherhood, sisterhood between India and Afghanistan. I think there are lots of enemies try to destroy that natural friendship, but nothing happened. It's an extremely strong roots, the relationship between India and Afghanistan. So I think that strong roots is a big and huge tree that under shadow of that great, beautiful green and fresh tree, we can breathe and we can relax, we can enjoy, and we can trust. We can lay down and we can just sit and relax. That's that when I give the example of big tree, it means our friendship, our relationship. But when it comes to India politics at the moment, I'm against all kind of proxy war in Afghanistan. And from my points of view, from my perspective, India never interfered the Afghan domestic issue. So they always left for the Afghans to decide whom they want and what they want. So I really do appreciate the Indian respect and mutual respect comes and understanding from from India to Afghanistan. So that's why we call it friend. I think few countries in the world, Germans, Japan, India, we call it natural friends. So especially, but India is totally something else. I think we feel that we have lots shared. So that's why when I criticize that even the Indian visas, because India was the only country that they had the free visa and open door, they opened their door and their hearts to the Afghans. So a large number of Afghan a young generation are studying. So the two different between our neighbor with the name of Pakistan, their machine and their product is terrorist. So we call suicider for Afghanistan. But the product of India is always been knowledge, scholars, and education for Afghanistan. So that's I don't want to compare India with any other country, but I hope India will keep at least politically the side of Afghan government and especially the Afghan people, because governments can come and go. What is really will exist forever is the nation and the people of Afghanistan. We are hoping from India, it's more than anyone in the region, to work with Afghanistan and to be our voice. I think we don't know when our voice will be cut, because even the telecom networks we are connecting to, it's not our hands. So, but I would like my great in the Indian great men and women to be the voice of your great friends, Afghans, across the world, across the globe.
So just to end on in a line, for us to remind the world about Afghans' hopes for themselves, what is the country and society that you visualize for yourself?
Well, I have a dream always, and I'm sure the dream will come true. A peaceful Afghans to live with a dignity, a stable and sustainable Afghanistan to be stand on their own feet. So this is what I'm dreaming, and especially I'm really thirsty to see Afghan women and a great position of leadership, because that will prove who we are exactly and how we will lead our country, and we will direct our country for a brighter future.
You were going to stand for president and you didn't, but the one thing that the entire subcontinental region has achieved is very powerful women leaders from Bangladesh to Sri Lanka, India, even Pakistan has had very, very strong women political leaders. And I hope that in some miraculous way, Shukriya, that we still all live in our lifetime to see a woman be the president of Afghanistan. And I don't know if we have the time to ask why you never stood in 2014, but I know that you wanted to stand, Fawzia has wanted to stand. So, the
yes,
desire.
We both have desire to be, but why I didn't stand in 2014? Because I thought Fawzia, she was prepared everything to go and submit. But in the last minute, because I don't want to compete with the women. So any woman in the list means I'm going for a competition against her. But from my point of view, it's important for Afghan women. I may not be a political leader according to the today modern Afghanistan leadership means being part of X or Y or Z militant group. But I'm extremely happy to be an Afghan social leader. So still I'm proud about the position I have in the hearts and minds of Afghans. That is important, despite of how tough I am and despite of how loud I am. I will keep that dream, no matter who will be and what will be her name. I think any woman in such a position with a great achievement, with such a great courage and hope, I think I would say that's me. I'm part of her and she's part of me.
It's amazing to know you stepped aside for Fawzia. I hope to speak with her and will ask her. And you left this very powerful image that you would be part of any progressive, liberal, courageous woman, and they would be part of you. And I was smiling when you built this image of a tree. When I think of Afghani people and how much stress and conflict you've been through and are going through, that image you just painted of relaxing and of breathing under the shade of a tree and just allowing yourselves to be, it doesn't, in this circumstance, look so difficult. It's such a simple dream. And I hope that for you all very, very fervently. And thank you very much, Shukriya, for talking with me.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you.